Today marks 1 year since 4 University College students lost their lives at the University of Idaho. Now, we have a suspect, but we still don't have a motive, a weapon, or really any definitive connection between the suspect and these victims. There's still a lot of questions that haven't been answered. Hey everyone, it's Lucky with Unfiltered Lucky. Today marks 1 year since 4 University of Idaho college students lost their lives. Now, over this past year, we really haven't learned that much more about what has happened in these crimes. There's still a lot of questions. There's still a lot of uncertainty around this investigation. So today, on the anniversary of the Idaho 4 crimes, I want to talk about 10 questions that a lot of us are still asking. Now, one of the questions that I want to begin with is, where were Ethan and Xana from 9 p.m. on November 12th to 1:45 a.m. on November 13th? Where were Ethan and Xana? Now, law enforcement in the beginning stated that they knew about Ethan and Xana's whereabouts from 8 to 9 p.m. that evening, that they were at the Sigma Chi frat house. But they didn't know their whereabouts and were desperately seeking information on their whereabouts from 9 to 1:45. Now, Xana's dad stated in an interview that he spoke to Xana the night that these crimes occurred, and that he spoke to Xana at approximately midnight, and that Xana and Ethan were at home watching movies and having a quiet night. Now, a lot of people have said, college students lie. But I don't understand why Xana would lie about this. I mean, as a dad, I think I would rather hear my daughter tell me that she's at a party than hanging out in bed with her boyfriend. So I don't understand why Xana would lie about this. Now, Bethany, she stated that Ethan and Xana were at the Sigma Chi house from 9 until 1:45. So we have Xana's dad, who spoke to them at midnight, and they were at home having a quiet night. We have law enforcement, who knows that they were at the Sigma Chi house between 8 and 9 p.m., but is searching for information about their whereabouts from 9 to 1:45. And then we have Bethany, who states that they were at the Sigma Chi house from 9 to 1:45. So where was Ethan and Xana during this time? Now, I haven't really talked too much about the Banfield footage, because when I watched the Banfield footage, I guess my main concern and my main interest was the direction in which these body cams were pointed. Could you see the house at 1122 King Road in these body cams? And that was kind of my main concern. But it's a crazy coincidence that undercover law enforcement was basically right outside of this house at the approximate times of the crimes. Law enforcement was right outside while these crimes could very well have been occurring. And that's just always been a coincidence that I've never really understood. Now, we know that the two roommates did not call 911. The two surviving roommates, Dylan and Bethany, did not call 911. But a real head scratcher is, why didn't anybody who came to the house in that morning call 911 either? Now, people have stated that there were friends at this house as early as 8 to 8:30 that morning. Why didn't any of those people call 911? So not just Dylan and Xana. So Dylan and Xana didn't just not call 911, but the people who were called to the house also did not call 911 until later, right before noon. You know, if I'm showing up to a crime scene, the first question that I'm asking is, has anybody called 911? I've just always thought that was strange that, I mean, of course it's strange that Dylan and Bethany didn't call 911, but I've always thought it was strange that the individuals that showed up to their house that morning also did not call 911. That's very strange. Now, I've always kind of wondered, because when Dylan made her statement and described who she saw in their house that morning of the crimes, clad in black, 5'10" or taller, bushy eyebrows, there was a lot of talk that Dylan didn't call 911 right away because she was frozen in shock. Now, there's also a lot of talk that when Dylan saw this intruder, she really didn't know that this was an intruder at all. She thought that this may have been somebody who was just at the house that night. There's a lot of talk that she believed that there were members of Sigma Chi upstairs that night. And that's where she believed the noise was coming from. So there's statements that Dylan, when this intruder walked past her, possibly just thought that this was a guest at their home that was leaving that morning. But then that wouldn't make sense about why Dylan was frozen in shock. Why would she be frozen in shock if she believed that this person was just somebody leaving their house from the night before? That's just really never made sense to me. Now, another very strange coincidence is the DoorDash order. It's strange to me that a DoorDash order was being delivered to the house at the same time that these crimes were beginning, according to the timeline. The DoorDash driver and the suspect would have basically had to pass each other driving. It's just so strange that there was a DoorDash delivery at exactly the same time that the crimes began, according to the timeline. Now, law enforcement stated that in their very first press conference, law enforcement stated that they didn't believe there was that the public was in danger. That they reiterated that this was a targeted attack. It was targeted toward the people in this house. So, law enforcement did not believe that anyone else was in danger. But at this time, law enforcement still didn't have a suspect, or they hadn't announced a suspect at this time. So it would have been very possible that there's a very dangerous individual or individuals running around this community who just took the lives of 4 college students. But law enforcement tells the public not to worry. They're not in danger. Which also leads me to believe that they realized exactly what they were dealing with as soon as they entered this house. But that's a video for another day. Now, something very confusing that the coroner stated in an interview right after these crimes occurred. The coroner stated that she was asked about toxicology reports and about how long those toxicology reports could take to get back from the labs. And the coroner stated that she did not believe that toxicology reports would play a part in the investigation of these crimes. That doesn't make sense at all. Of course toxicology reports would be necessary. Of course you would want to know the frame of mind of these victims and the frame of mind of these surviving roommates. Toxicology reports, in my opinion, would be crucial in the investigation of these crimes. So that was a statement that was made that never really made sense to me, that the coroner did not believe that the toxicology reports really mattered. That was odd. Now, something that we all saw, because all of the media was there, all of the news was present for this event, and it's something that happened that it's hard to understand. Law enforcement pulls up to the house at 1122 King Road, an active crime scene, in a U-Haul truck, and begins removing the victim's belongings from the house. This is an active crime scene. They still have not announced that they have a suspect at this time. They're still asking for the public's help. But yet they're moving all of the victim's belongings out of this crime scene, an active crime scene, before they have a suspect. There was no evidence bags that I saw, no evidence tape as they were loading these belongings into this U-Haul truck, and then they just drove away with all the belongings of the victims in this house. That's very strange. That's something that I'll never understand. I'll never understand why they did that. Now, one of the last things that I want to talk about is their continued efforts to demolish this house. Why are they in such a hurry to demolish this house? Now, I understand that this house likely brings back bad memories for the students, for the staff. I can understand why they would want to demolish the house. But why insist on demolishing the house before the suspect has gone to trial? In my opinion, the house is one of the biggest pieces of evidence. I feel like if you destroy the house, you're destroying evidence. So it's just never made sense to me about why they would want to demolish this house. So there's a lot of questions that still remain. This is just a few of them. There's many, many more than this. There's a lot of questions that remain to be answered by law enforcement, by investigators. I feel like as this year has passed, we don't really have much more evidence than we did back then. There's really not a whole lot more information that has been released. I understand there's a gag order. Things have been sealed. We've had some information. There's been information that's been leaked, but anytime information is leaked, it's always questionable. You always have to question that information. So I'm going to continue searching for answers in this case and looking at all the little details, reading all of your information and ideas. Now, beginning on this Thursday, I'm going to begin doing a new segment. It's going to be called Third-Party Theories, where I'm going to share one of your theories every Thursday. And I'm going to take your theory and break it down using critical thinking and common sense, which is what I do. So I get a lot of theories in the comment section and through correspondence. So with permission, of course, every Thursday, I'm going to share and talk about and break down one of your theories. So be looking for that every Thursday. Now, last, but certainly not least, I want to say Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana, may you all rest in peace. Today we remember these victims. My heart goes out to the families and friends of these victims and the families who have been torn apart over these crimes. My heart goes out to you all. We'll see you next time.